Good evening. My name is Stephen McCallister, and first off, I'd like to thank you for taking this opportunity to watch my video about threat actors in the healthcare setting. Now, let's move on to the introduction. With the introduction, this is what we're going to be talking about. Various threat actors, which are the Advanced Persistent Threat, or APT, cyber terrorism, script kiddies, cyber criminals, hacktivists, and insider threats. I'm also going to prioritize the threat actors and describe two different types of threats each. I'm going to describe what a threat is and what a vulnerability is. Let's start with ATP, Advanced Persistent Threat. Quick definition: sophisticated and sustained cyber attack in which hackers enter a network undetected in order to steal data. Some good examples: APT-27, also known as Goblin Panda, first identified in 2013 in September. Methods used: plugx and HTTP tunneling. With ATP, Advanced Persistent Threat Adversary Model, we have 5 things we're looking at: assumptions, goals, capabilities, favored techniques, and aversion to risk. With assumptions, they're looking for weak systems, a location, maybe a bad network that's not configured correctly, and old patches. Their goals: to disrupt flow of information and or money capabilities of gaining, and to cripple systems. Their capabilities: infiltrate systems, create copycats, and deploy scripts quickly. Favored techniques, like I mentioned before, the plugx and HTTP tunneling. Their aversion to risks: attacking old systems and not leaving a trail. Now let's move on to cyber terrorism. The definition of cyber terrorism is politically motivated use of technology to cause and incite disruption and/or widespread fear throughout society. Some examples is the hacking group Anonymous, founded in September of 2003. Methods used: basic hacks. A quick breakdown of cyber terrorism's adversary model is as follows. Their assumptions: hack into everything, ties to terrorist. Their goals: freedom of data, ability to pass between systems, and monetary incentives. Their capabilities: they're large and organized, and hackers on multiple continents. Their favorite techniques is phishing and social engineering, and their aversion to risk is covering a face, masking a voice, leaving breadcrumb trails after an attack. Next, let's talk about script kiddies. The definition of a script kiddie is someone who is inexperienced and uses another script or program to attack a computer system. Some examples is Bradley Niblock, who used a delay of service assault against the Labour Party candidate in Europe. Methods used: repurposed penetration tools and social engineering. Next, let's move on to cyber criminals. A definition of a cyber criminal is anyone who uses technology for unlawful purposes. An example is Team Poison, first identified in September of 2013. Their favorite methods used: brute force attacks and social engineering. Let's move on to hacktivist. The definition of a hacktivist is anyone who uses a computer to further one's political agenda. An example is the Jester, which is a gray hacktivist. Gray meaning not quite legal, not quite illegal. Methods used: delay of service scripts. Let's now discuss insider threats. A definition of an insider threat is someone who is sophisticated and sustained in cyber attack in which hackers enter a network undetected in order to steal data. A great example of this is the General Electric attack, where theft of turbine data. Methods used: phishing and misconfigured systems. Now let's discuss the prioritization of threat actors. So, in my opinion, the worst of the group is going to be the insider threats, because they can use phishing and misconfigured systems. Phishing could be someone working on our database. Let's say we fire them, but we don't take away their permissions, and they can drop and delete tables. If we don't have backups, that could be a bad thing. They could also have a vendetta causing a phishing email to steal the CEO's login to steal whatever data they want. Next is cyber criminals. They could use brute force and social engineering. Brute force could be if the system has a weak password policy. makes it much easier to hack. And with social engineering, they can call into a department and pretend to be somebody from the C-suite asking for credentials. Next, cyber terrorist. Their types of attacks could be ransomware and delay of service. For ransomware, they could deploy ransomware and ask for millions to unencrypt the system. And with delay of service, they could deploy packets to an extent that causes the system to freeze, thereby preventing anyone else from accessing the system. Advanced persistent threat could use plug X and HTTP tunneling. Plug X creates a DLL loader that unencrypts data on a system, and an HTTP tunnel encapsulates traffic in an HTTP header and sends it over any open ports to bypass action control policies and any kind of network logins. The hacktivists use phishing and smishing. For phishing, they create a fake email to gain credentials to a network, and with smishing, they could send a mass text message to all members of the hospital asking to verify credentials. Lastly, we're going to discuss script kiddies. This is the least severe in my opinion, and they would use port scanning and worms. Now with port scanning, they could use pre-made software to try to scan the network to see what ports are open. And with worms, they can send an effective email, thereby deploying the worms to infect the network. A threat is anything that can exploit a vulnerability intentionally or accidentally and obtain, damage, or destroy assets. A vulnerability is a weakness or gap in a security program that can be exploited by threats to gain unauthorized access to an asset. In conclusion, we discussed various threat actors, which included advanced persistent threats, cyber terrorism, script kiddies, cyber criminals, hacktivists, and insider threats. I discussed the prioritization of those threat actors and what I felt like was the most meaningful order, and I gave 2 demonstrations of attacks that they could use. I also demonstrated and defined threats and vulnerabilities. I greatly thank you for watching this presentation and hope you have a great day. Thank you.